Hi everyone, welcome to the US CPA classes for business analysis and reporting examination. In this particular video, I'll be walking you through in detail about prospective analysis. Specifically, the topic we are covering is the regression analysis and the method of regression analysis. This is chapter 1, business analysis. So let's dive into to understand more in detail about regression analysis and the method of regression analysis. Hi everyone, welcome back. So before we went on a break, we covered this topic forecasting and projecting. So in that we have discussed in detail about quantitative forecasting and projection and qualitative factor for forecasting and projection. And then after we did certain notes and we did certain illustration. And lastly, we did some practice question as well. Now we are jumping on to the next topic, which is regression analysis. Have you heard this term before? Regression analysis? Any idea?
सर पढ़ा तो भाई अभी
Yeah, Krishan, Manish, Arun, any of you have any idea about regression analysis? Or
No, Kamal.
Okay. So regression analysis is basically there are two you can say component. One component is called dependent and other components are called independent. Where component which is being dependent have some relation or correlation or depends on the changes in the independent variable. That relation between dependent and independent is called, you can say, regression, right? So it's actually a mathematical technique which you used to study in our school days, as well as some of you might have studied in your costing or financial management as well in your college days. So it's a mathematical technique used to predict the value of one variable, which is a dependent variable, and its change based on the value of some other variable that is independent variable. So theoretically, if I say you need to regression analysis help in identifying the expected change in the dependent variable based on the change in the independent variable, right? So there is one variable that is called dependent. What will be the change in the dependent based on the change in independent variable, right? For example, if you are producing any petroleum product, right, what will be the change in the price of petroleum crude oil in the international market that will impact the pricing of your product also, right? Yes or no? Are you guys with me?
Yes.
Oh my god. Yeah, please keep responding. Right. For another example, if you see, if there is a change in price of petrol or change in price of diesel, would that impact the change in the price or sale of quantity of cars? Yes or no?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Right? So that analysis between these two, which is car is dependent on petrol, right? Because without petrol or without diesel, like car will not run unless and until it's an EV vehicle now, right? For example, whatever is the energy source of energy, whether it's like electricity, it's petrol, it's diesel, right? So the car sale of the car is dependent on the source of energy, right? So the relation between these two is called regression analysis. Make sense?
Yes.
So estimating the change in dependent variable based on change in independent variable is called regression analysis. For example, analyzing the relation between the country's GDP and the factors such as consumer spending power, inflation rate, investment, right? Predicting stock price. Another example is predicting stock price based on the historical data and relevant financial indicator are called regression analysis, right? When you are analyzing the expected GDP of any country, right? So what all factors you'll be keeping in mind? One is the consumer spending power, consumer earnings, inflation rate, right? And the investment which coming into the country or infusing into the economic, right? Those all factors will help you identify what would be the future GDP of that respective country. Make sense? Second is when you need to predict the stock price of any company, what all factor you keep in mind? The historical data, right? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Relevant financial indicator like price to equity ratio, debt to equity ratio, earning, returns on earning, right? In addition to that, you will identify the change in market dynamic or any news related to the respective industry, right? So the stock price of any company, of any industry has been dependent on so many data, right? So the relation between the data points and the stock price is called regression analysis. There are two types of regression analysis. One is single regression analysis. Second is multiple regression analysis. What is single regression analysis? Like car price and the energy source price, right? That can be your petrol, diesel, or electric, right? So that is single regression analysis. Like for example, if it is a petrol car, so it has related to the petrol price. If it is a diesel car, it has directly relation to the diesel. If it is electric car, it has direct relation with the electric supply. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
So it involves the use of only one independent variable or one independent variable or component. That is explanatory variable. Examples is sale of ice cream and temperature. So if temperature is hot, then ice cream sale will generally increase, right? Yes, no.
Yes, sir.
So when purchasing power is high, so generally expenses are also high,
Yes, sir.
right? So these are certain examples where we have single regression analysis. When you have multiple regression analysis, that means multiple factor to decide on the action of the dependent component, right? It allow for more than one independent variable, right? For analysis purpose. For example, when you purchase a house, what all things you keep in mind? When you have to purchase a house, what all things you will be keeping in mind?
The location,
Location,
size, car parking,
car parking, what else?
the builder quality,
Quality
age
of
of the
builder,
building,
yeah. Quality of building, quality of
age of the
material,
building,
age of the building, yeah. What else? So how
based on
much
the
is the
pricing.
area? How much is the area you are getting? Isn't it?
Yes, sir.
How much is the space you are getting? Right? Which locality you are taking? Which location it is? Right? Is it park facing or is it south facing, east facing, north facing? So many things you keep in mind, right? That means there are multiple regression analysis when you reach to a conclusion for purchasing a home, right? So when it comes to home, there are multiple regression analysis. One is location, locality, pricing, built up area, covered area, your parking, right? All those things you'll be keeping in mind, isn't it? Right?
Yes, sir.
Same way, I know it is close to your heart, how the management evaluate employee performance. What all things as a manager you keep in mind when you are doing performance evaluation of your team member? Education, right?
Yes.
Year of experience, right? Teamwork, right? Client relation. I know it's close to your heart, especially in the month of October. You guys have PMDP on the way, right? All those things. I know, like there are respective factor you might be discussing with your team member, or your senior might be discussing with you, right? So for performance evaluation of the individual employee, again, there are multiple factors or multiple things to be considered. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Right? So that is also called multiple regression analysis. Next time when your manager will be evaluating, what you'll say, don't do too much multiple regression analysis. Right? Yes, no.
Yes, sir.
So regression analysis may be useful to predict the future sales, revenue, profit, demand, cost, etc. To separate a semi-variable into the fixed and variable component method of regression. So next thing is method of regression analysis. There are various methods of regression analysis. So let's do one by one. First, in regression analysis equation. Second is scattered graph method. And then after you have least square method. Right, then you have correlation method. Right. And then you have coefficient of correlation method. Yeah, these are 4 methods. So we'll be discussing one by one. So first is regression analysis equation. So regression analysis equation is y is equal to a plus bx. So that's a formula where y is dependent variable for which you need to calculate or identify the value. A, the y-intercept, that is fixed overhead cost. A is your fixed overhead cost. C is the slope. B is the slope on line, that is variable overhead cost per direct labor. That means like variable cost. B is basically variable cost. And X is independent variable, that is direct labor hour, right? And Bx is the total variable overhead cost. So Bx is basically variable cost and A is fixed cost. So Y is the total cost basically of the dependent. So total cost of dependent is equal to fixed cost plus variable cost, and variable cost is dependent on independent component, right? So this is like the formula or equation, y is equal to a plus bx. Make sense? Formula, everyone is comfortable?
Yes.
Okay. So use high-low level of the cost and activity for the regression analysis. So you'll be doing the analysis at the high volume or low volume, high level or low level, high cost or low level, low cost, to understand the relation between the two components or identifying the respective component. First is break down the mixed cost into fixed cost and variable cost. So these are like the step 1, 2, 3, I would say steps. So the first step is breakdown of the mixed cost into fixed and variable. So first thing what you need to do, break down the cost. Second is has an advantage of being easy and inexpensive to use. So it is not step basically. Has disadvantage of being least accurate of the method as it use only two observation, and these may not be the representative of the relationship between variable. So advantage is easy to use, but disadvantage is there may be multiple factor that you need to keep in mind. It should not be a direct answer based on one relation, right? So calculation, step 1 is calculate the variable cost per unit. Step 2 is calculate fixed cost, and then fixed cost plus variable cost multiplied by number of units is equal to your total cost, right? So how to calculate variable cost? Change in the cost at high level and low level, right? So in the question, you might have been given the cost at one level and another level. So what you need to do, you need to understand what is the change in cost from one level to another level, divide by change in activity or unit among the two level, right? That will give you per unit cost. We'll do certain example also, don't worry. Just understand the theory and then we do certain example as well. Step 2 is calculate the total fixed cost. How do you calculate the fixed cost? Total cost at either high level or low level minus the total variable cost at respective level will give you total fixed cost. Right? We'll do certain example over here. So example here is historical record cost and volume measure. Also it has given like below is the illustration. I would say it's an illustration. So what does illustration says? Your highest level and lowest level. Cost per month is 39,200, not $32,000 at the lowest. And the machine hour used is 24,000 hour and 15,000 hour. So what are they saying? Calculate variable cost per unit and total fixed cost per month using the high dash low level method. High and low level method. So first step, step 1 is change in cost. What is change in cost? 39,200 minus 32,000. Right, everyone? This is clear?
Yes, sir.
So 7,200. Step 2 is change in machine hour. That is 24,000 minus 15,000 is 9,000 hour. Right? So step 3 is your variable cost calculation. Variable cost is change in cost divided by change in hour, that is 80 cents per machine hour.
Yes, sir.
Right? So step 4 is calculation of fixed cost. Fixed cost is equal to cost at high level minus variable cost 24,000 minus 80 cents 19,200. So this will give you fixed cost for the month. Make sense? Right? So regression analysis equation y is equal to a plus bx. So y is $20,000 and b is 80 cents per dollar. X is number of hour. So now whether you consider x 15,000, you'll calculate accordingly. You consider x as 20,000, you'll do the calculation accordingly. If you say 24,000, it will do the math accordingly. Right?
Yes, sir. Clear.
So next illustration I would say. Take it to the next page. So material handling cost of two activity level is as follows. So kilos handle and cost 80,000 kg, $160,000, 60,000 kg, 132,000. What will be the estimated cost of handling 75,000? Can you do at your own this example? I know like we have solution here, but can you do the math at your own? So you have 80 kg cost 160,000 and you have 60,000 kg, you have cost of 132,000. What will be the estimated cost of 75,000? I know solution is there, but do you mind doing at your own Excel sheet or paper pen or maybe in your calculator?
Yes, sir.
So what is change in cost? 160,000 minus
132, 28.
132, that is $28,000, right?
Yes.
Change in activity or change in kgs, 80,000 minus 60,000, that is 20,000 kg. So what will be the variable cost per kg? 28,000 divided by 20,000.
Yes, sir. Sir, 25 and 28.
Sorry. So 28,000 divided by 20,000, that is $1.40
Yes, sir.
per kg. So what will be the fixed cost? What will be the fixed cost?
The fixed costs available on at high level.
So 160 is the total cost minus variable cost at higher level. 80,000 minus 80,000 multiplied by $1.40, that is $112,000, right?
Yes,
So
sir.
the fixed cost is
48.
$48,000. Everyone agree? Any doubt here? So
No.
far so good. How we have calculated fixed cost? Now you have fixed cost with you. Now you have variable cost per unit with you. The call of the question is, what will be the estimated cost for 75,000 unit? So your fixed cost of 48,000 will remain same, but variable cost will be 75,000 multiplied by $1.40, which is 105,000. So the total cost is $153,000, right? Clear, everyone?
Yes, sir.
सर हमने यहाँ पे जो फिक्स कॉस्ट निकाली है, we will only calculate at highest level only, right?
No, you can do at lower level. It will come same only. If you do at lower level, 60,000 multiplied by 1.4, how much is it? Just do the math. 60,000 into 1.4. How much is it? 84,000?
Yes, sir.
Right? So if you
132
say,
minus.
yeah, minus 132,000, so it will give same result, 48,000.
ठीक है.
Right?
Got it.
Okay. So second method for regression analysis is scattered graph method. Have you heard this before? Have you heard this method before? Scattered graph method?
So scatter plots होना हुआ वही है I guess.
Yeah, more or less the same. Yeah, Pranshi, Manish, any idea? So scattered graph is basically there are multiple observation or multiple point of view or multiple things around the two variables. So that all multiple, like correlation, analysis, point of view has been plotted on the graph, and then a midline is being crafted. That is called least square line. And that have some things in the right hand side and some analysis on the left hand side, but generally this linear line, which is least square line, is being considered as the relation between the to component. Multiple observation of two variables are plotted on a graph in order to visually determine their relationship. A straight line is then drawn through the plotted points so that there is an equal distance between red line and the plotted points above and below the line. When the plot points on a scattered graph follow the generally straight line, a linear relationship assumed to exist on the variable are said to be correlated with each other. When there is a straight line, it means there is a linear relationship among the respective points. When it is not a straight line, that means there is no linear relationship. Note that when the coefficient of correlation between two variables are 0, scatter diagram of these variables will be at a random points. That means there is no correlation. Third is least square method. So least square method regression analysis is a mathematically fitted line to the observation of the variable which were plotted in a scattered graph, and it provides a relationship between the two data points, like relationship between our studies and exam scores, right? The least square method fit the line to the observation show that the sum of the squared variance of the observation above and below the line are minimized. That means the gap between above the line and below the line is minimum. That means they are more and more correlated. This is a practice to find the regression line or best fit line for a given pattern. The goal is to find the line or a curve that make the sum of these squared residual as small as possible. Multiple regression analysis is further an explanation of least square method, allowing for the consideration for more than one independent variable. Right? When it comes to least square method, what they are saying, all these points which is above the line and below the line, right? What correlation we do, that the gaps will be minimal, right? So that analysis is called least square analysis, right? Fourth is correlation analysis. It is again a statistical measure of the relationship of dependent and independent variable is a coefficient of correlation. We do correlation analysis based on the coefficient of correlation. We'll be discussing about that in detail. When perfect correlation exists, all the points lie on the regression line. So when there is a perfect correlation, it's a straight line always, right? And the coefficient of correlation would be either +1 or -1. If it is moving in this direction, perfectly correlation +1. If it is moving in this direction, then perfectly correlative -1, right? Depend on whether they are directly positively or inversely negatively related to each other. If no correlation exists, so it will be 0. That means the graph should be like this only. So perfect positive correlation, if you see in the left hand side, y-axis, x-axis, and the perfect correlation line, right? Perfectly negative correlation, you will see right hand side, it's going downside, right? Positive correlation going upside, negative correlation go downside. And how do you calculate coefficient of correlation? That is R. It serves as a statistical matrix gauging the appropriateness to fit of the regression line to observe the variable data. It is computed by squaring the coefficient of correlation. As R square approaches 1, we have higher level of assurance. The independent variable account for most of the variability are dependent variable. Coefficient of determination, that is R square of 0.94 would mean 94% of the change in dependent variable is related to the change in independent variable. That means when you say the correlation coefficient is 0.94, that is 94% of change in independent variable impact the change in variable, right? So the range of coefficient correlation is always from -1 to 1%. That means minus 100% to plus 100%, right? So the maximum correlation exists between plus 1 and minus 1, or minus 1 or plus 1. Example of regression analysis resulting A company as shown, y is equal to 90x plus 45, right? The standard error is 30. So standard error is 30, and coefficient of determination is 0.81. The budget call of the production of 100 unit, what will be the A company estimate of the total cost? So the correlation is y is equal to 90x plus 45. So y is equal to 90 multiplied by x. X is 100 unit plus 45. That is 9045 is the total cost of sale. Standard error, that is SE, it is approximately standard deviation of the standard sample population. It measures the accuracy with which the sample distribution present in the population by using a standard deviation. So it's a formula of standard deviation. Standard error is equal to standard deviation divided by sample size, number of sample size, or sorry, under root of sample size. Examples using the regression analysis to predict the overhead cost. So let's do an example. For, I know it's theory, slightly boring and like overwhelming, but you just keep in mind about the formulas and the equations which we have discussed in the theory, that at the end we need to apply into the respective example, right? So now we are doing examples. So now you'll be better in a position to correlate this theory with the illustration. So I would say this illustration. Use regression analysis to predict the overhead cost, whereas cost driver, which is independent variable, are machine hour and direct material weights, right? So y, which is intercept coefficient, which is a dependent variable, that is machine hour 2500, and direct material which is being used is 4600 unit. And your coefficient correlation, that is slope line, is 5 and 2.6 accordingly. And you have coefficient correlation, which is R square, is 0.70 and 0.15. That means the correlation is 70% and 50%. Dependent variable will change 70% in case of machine hour and 50% in case of direct material, right? What will be the regression equation? So machine hour and independent variable have a higher coefficient of determination, that is R2, which is 70%. Thus the regression equation will be y is equal to 2500 multiply plus 5x. What you need to keep in mind, always choose higher regression number because the correlation will be high. The relationship between the dependent variable and independent variable will be high when the coefficient correlation is high. So in this scenario, we have chosen machine hour because 70% is the correlation, right? So y is equal to 2500 plus 5x. So that will be your regression equation, right? Let's do some question over here. Let's do a few questions over here. Okay, so multiple regression differ from simple regression in that it allow the computation of coefficient of determination, allow computation of coefficient of determination, provide an estimate constant term as more independent variable. What is the difference? Multiple regression differ from simple regression. What is the key difference? Are you guys here? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, if you remember what we have studied here, simple regression and multiple regression. So in simple regression, you have only one independent variable component,
Yes, sir.
and here you have more than one independent variable, right? So what is the difference between simple regression and multiple regression? Number of variable component, right? So has more independent variable component, right?
Yes, sir.
Are you guys with me?
Yes, sir. Clear.
Manish, Arun?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Second question is regression equation. So a regression equation is encompass factor outside the relevant range, is based on objective and constant functions, estimate dependent variable, or estimate independent variable. What a regression equation do? What is the objective of a regression equation? If you remember, regression equation. So if you remember, regression analysis may be used to predict, regression equation. So what we do in regression equation, and why do we use regression equation? We have done few example. What it says?
The second lag raha.
Just read this again. Kashish, can you read this for me?
The low level of cost and activities for regression analysis. Break down a mixed cost into a fixed and variable component. Has the advantage of being easy and inexpensive to use. Has a disadvantage of being the least accurate of the method, as it uses only two observations and these may not be representative of the relationship between the variables.
So now coming back to the question. So regression equation, what does it encompass? Encompass factor outside the relevant range or within the range?
Or within the range.
Right. So first option is incorrect.
Yes, sir.
Second is based on objective and constant function. Is it based on some objective or constant function?
No, sir.
Right. So estimate the dependent variable. What is y? What is y in the formula?
A plus bx.
No. What is y? What is y? Right. So what you are calculating? Dependent variable.
Yes, sir.
Right. So third option is correct. Estimate the dependent variable.
Yes.
That's what regression analysis do.
Yes, sir.
Right. So third option is correct option. Right. Everyone?
Yes, sir.
Any doubt? Manish, Arun?
Clear, easy.
Right. Everyone comfortable? Okay. So let's do the last topic, break-even analysis. And it's a bigger one. Looks very long.
तो next class में कर लेंगे.
ठीक है. Okay, I think you guys are feeling drowsy. Are you guys here? Like sometimes I feel, are you guys listening to me or not?
No, no, sir.